There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and another wee book haul. I got 3 books for you. I'm excited about, well, I've read one and excited about the other 2. The first one that I haven't read was recommended to me by the wonderful German-English translator Joe Heinrich, who was a mystery guest on my channel some months ago, and that was quite a get. And one of the books she recommended was this Turkish novel, the first in a trilogy. And I'll do my best with the pronunciation. It's called The Blacksmith Daughter, and the author is Selim Özdogan. And it's translated from the Turkish by Ayca Türkoglu and Katy, Derbyshire. Published by B&Q Books, which is a wonderful publisher. Oh, and I made a mistake. It's translated from the German. So yes, I was momentarily confused, because as far as I know, this German publisher, B&Q Books, publishes exclusively works of German literature translated into English. So there you go. The protagonist for this trilogy is a Turkish girl growing up in the 1950s in Anatolia who moves to Germany as a migrant worker, and much plot ensues. The name of the trilogy is the Anatolian Blues Trilogy, and this is the first one, as I've said about 3 times. It was originally published in German in 2005, and this translation 2021. Here are the first 2 very short paragraphs. "Don't make my husband a murderer," I told him. "Stop the car. Don't make my husband a murderer. Stop the car and let me out. And then piss off as fast as you can." Timur exhales and turns his head away, so Fatma can't see him tearing up. He's still struggling for breath. He's grateful, so grateful that fate has chosen this woman for him. She must have been written in his book of life on the very day he was born. He doesn't know what's happened to him, where all the time has gone. Well, that's a rather dramatic and mysterious opening, don't you think? This is the one I've read, and I've talked about it in my Friday Reads a little bit. This is a work of Western Canadian literature, published originally in 1935, in French. So it's a work of Western Canadian French literature, and it's a wonderful novel. It's called The Forest by Georges Bugnet. And this came onto my radar because my old prof, who I'm doing a series of interviews with, David Carpenter, translated it into English in 1976. It's still in print and apparently still being taught in classrooms. And I read it to my cousin Mary Jean, and we both loved it. I think it's a really, really fine novel that shows one of the things that attracted David Carpenter to it in his scholarly research into Western Canadian literature was that it was the first real, fully drawn female character and protagonist written by a man in Western Canadian literature. And it really is a marvelous portrait of this French, not French Canadian. It's kind of like African versus African American. These are French settlers who came from France to, I think, Montreal, and after a few years they came out to northern Alberta to homestead. And it was quite a challenging change from their rather literary salon, intellectual, hoity-toity life back in France. It's wonderful. I highly, highly recommend it. It's still in print. I'll read the first few lines. There's about 3 or 4 paragraphs, but most of them are just one line of dialogue. "Without these bloodthirsty mosquitoes, it would be a dream. It scares me, Roger." "What does?" "The forest. We shouldn't have settled so far away from civilization." "You're getting fearful, Louise. I think this country's magnificent. Just look at the rich colors over there to the west, and those reflections on the new spring leaves." Instinctively, the young wife, still in her elegant city clothes, pressed close against the tall man, who put his arms around her. He wore a hunting outfit with tawny leather gaiters. 2 human beings, scarcely visible in the vastness of this virgin land. Now, if that sounds like a really conventional marriage in those opening lines, rest assured, it does not remain one. Pulling it right out of its 1935 French-Canadian and Western Canadian context, it's one of the best works of fiction I've read about negotiation in a relationship. And I mean, I wasn't looking for novels about negotiating in a relationship, but it's so realistic that I learned a thing or 2. It's really, really great. And now I have my own copy. I read the library book copy to Mary Jean. And finally, this is a 2024 release, Canadian release. There's apparently quite a bit of buzz about it. Called Noir by Canisia, Lubrin. It's her debut. I think she's a poet. It's a work of literary and political fiction and very innovatively structured around Code Noir, which was a set of historical decrees from 1685 that King Louis XIV pronounced about the conditions of slavery in the French colonial empire. And what I understand is the author has taken each of those and wrote a work of fiction that resonates with it, using a whole bunch of different styles, tones, and genres. It sounds like some of the styles and tones and genres won't necessarily be within my comfort zone, and that'll be good for me. I'm going to skip over the prologue or whatever to chapter 1. It's called The Keeper of the Dates, and there are illustrations, which I'm pretty sure the author was responsible for. And I'll read the first few lines of this as well. The Keeper of the Dates. The woman keeps all her dates in a black room. You enter the room barefoot. She is standing at the front of the room beside a single white Roman pedestal. Upon it rests a statue of a golden chien. I assume that means dog. Upon it rests a statue of a golden chien, its rust-dark tongue curled up to the height of her palm. She relaxes her hand on the statue. She pets it. We have been told she remembers everything there ever was. She does not welcome anyone to the auction. There will be no such exchange of protocols, and we do not expend the silence to express outwardly that we are grateful. It is a strange respite from wasting our lives in the lingering noise of men who had arbitrarily determined what was important enough to be ritual. Well, that is a really quite powerful opening. And Canisia Lubrin, who I'd never heard anything about, she's won prizes for Caribbean literature, so that's all I'm going to research about her background at this point. She's won all kinds of prizes for poetry. This is her debut work of fiction. She was born in St. Lucia and now lives in Whitby, Ontario. I'm very curious about this one. Are you curious about any of these? Hold forth in the comments section below, and thank you for watching.